Hello, welcome to Win Some Loosemore. My name is Dieter Loosemore and you join me for a mechanisms video where I wanted to talk about a mechanism called action point allowance. There might be another phrase that I'm not thinking of, but that's what I'll be referring it to, which is very simple and is not as common as you might think. Now, this is a mechanism that is, as many of these are, relatively self-explanatory. Instead of a game where you do one thing, so we've spoken about worker placement or action selection, it's neither of those. It's not there's a few things that I can do and I choose one of them. It's you can do a set number of things and here is a list of things that you can choose from to do. I know that sounds like action selection, and there's some crossover, of course there is, but okay, let's start with probably the most popular example of this is a game called Pandemic. Whether you're playing it now or not it is up to you tonally, but that gives you a list of, I think, 8 things, maybe 6 things that you can do on your turn, and on your turn you are allowed to do 4 things, and so you have to choose. I'm going to move for 1 point, move again for another point, I'm going to clear this disease cube from this location for another point, and then I'm going to move over here in preparation for the next thing. And so you can spend your points on the same thing, you can do what you like, but you can only do 4 actions. And so you have an action point allowance of 4, and there's that list of 6, 8, I don't really remember, in which to do that. And now that could perhaps be a little overwhelming for a new player, and so the game limits that and says for some of these stronger actions like flying over here, you need to have a card to discard that matches the location. I can't remember whether it's the location you're going from or the location you're going to, probably to, that makes the most sense, but I might be wrong on that, don't quote me. And so it just goes, there's probably only about 3 or 4 things you're going to do regularly. And then there's more powerful things, but you need the limitation, the card or whatever it is to do that thing. And so it just gives you a sense of choice and agency. No longer, for many people, it's one of their first games in the hobby. No longer the strict limitation and yet randomness of, say, roll and move, where it determines what you do for you. But neither is it an action selection of here's 20 things, pick one, and you're going, I have no idea what's going on. It's going, here's a very clear objective, here's some things you can do, you get to do 4 things on your turn. Discuss with your team what's going to be helpful, and that works really well. But each action is worth a single point, and so there are other games like that, and then there are other games like the one I'm about to mention that take a slight twist on that. The game that kind of triggered this thought in my mind to do this one is a new game from Leader Games and Cole Worley called Oath, which is a big persistent political war game, but it doesn't look or feel like any of those things because it's got the art of Carl Ferrin. It's very warm and welcoming and silly and fantastical and yet deep and strategic, and there is war, but it doesn't feel like a war game in that sense. But what they've done, or what Cole Worley's done as the designer, is to create a supply track. Now, calling it supply rather than action points allows for some thematic ties into what you're doing. Why in Pandemic can you only do 4 things? Who knows? But you've got a track of supply, and each turn, again, there's those list of actions, but each one costs slightly different things. If you want to search through one of the various decks, it will cost you probably 2 supply. One of the decks that changes throughout the game, but I won't talk about that now. And so it costs you 2 supply. Okay, so that's one action. Okay, I want to muster, get new units. Okay, that costs me 1 supply, but I need to be on a place that has a card so I can play a thing. So there are other limitations here. And then I want to campaign, which is war. I want to go fight somebody, which costs me, again, I think 2 supply. And so they're varying amounts. One thing can cost 4 supply, searching a particular deck. And so it varies as to how you want to use your turn. But then here's the kind of thematic tie. Because you can muster, because you can build your army, the amount that you reset to, you don't get the same amount each turn. The amount that you reset to is determined by the amount of troops that you have. Because you now have a large army, actually they're going to be in theory, consuming some of your supplies because you need to feed them, you need to water them thematically. You don't have to do that as an action. It just means you start the next turn with less supply. And that's just a little clever twist. And then the other thing is, if you don't use all of your action points, if you don't use all your supply one turn, you get to carry over. So you reset to the point of where it tells you based on your army size, and then gain again the ones you didn't use. So you might intentionally take a really short turn because you've got a giant army, so you get to reset all the way, so you get to have a massive turn and do lots of things and take control of lots of stuff. And so it's just a really neat twist on, you've got 4 actions, here's a list of 8 things, pick, do whatever you like, into actually now which actions I choose when is not just a strategic choice, not just a strategic choice in achieving your goal in a round, in a turn during the game, but actually to set yourself up, not just geographically, not just with the cards or the actions that you're doing, but with how many points, how much of a choice you have another time. And that's just a really cool twist for me. So I'd love to hear in the comments other games that you know that use this mechanism, either the 1-for-1 like Pandemic, or the variable action points that use this. How do you choose which actions you're going to do? Some might be more powerful than others. What games do you know? Stick them down in the comments. Is this a mechanism you like? All the usual kind of questions. I'd love to hear your opinion on this. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that was helpful. It was just triggered recently. If you've been following my Instagram, you'll see I've been posting some pictures about Oath because it's fascinating me at the moment. I'll talk about that one another time though. Thank you very much for watching. Do consider subscribing to this channel if you don't already, and hit the bell icon so you stay updated when I put out new things, and then the usual social media stuff, like, follow, share, subscribe. We've got to say it, but it's silly. But thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you again. I've been Dieter at Full Winsome Loosemore. Goodbye.